The soft hum of conversations filled the elegant restaurant, the warm afternoon light streaming through the tall glass windows, casting golden glows across polished tables. The gentle clink of silverware and faint jazz music set the mood. But in one corner, silence suddenly grew heavier, colder, and sharper than the air conditioning. Every eye seemed to shift toward a young woman in a cream-colored dress, pushing a wheelchair. Her son, a thin boy of about 10, sat quietly, his eyes curious and innocent, a NASA logo shining on his blue shirt. The woman's hand trembled slightly on the wheelchair handle, yet her back remained straight, her chin high. Across from her stood a man in a crisp white shirt, his brows furrowed. He leaned slightly forward and asked, in a tone that was both confused and condescending, "Why did you bring your disabled son here? If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of compassion, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Thread." Stories like this remind us that humanity still shines brightest in the unlikeliest moments. The woman's name was Elena, a single mother who had once been an ambitious entrepreneur before life tested her in unimaginable ways. Her son, Leo, was born perfectly healthy. But when he was 6, a car accident took away not only his ability to walk but also Elena's husband, leaving her shattered and alone. For months, she couldn't sleep without waking up crying. She worked nights cleaning offices, studied business courses online, and fought through endless medical bills. But through all of it, she smiled for Leo, because he was her reason to live. Now, 4 years later, she had built her life back piece by piece. Her startup company, focused on accessible technology for children with disabilities, had caught the attention of investors and CEOs alike. But today was not about business. Today, she was trying something she had avoided for years, a blind date arranged by her well-meaning friend, Mia. Elena had hesitated, unsure if she was ready to open her heart again. Yet, something inside her whispered that maybe it was time to stop living in the shadow of grief. She had no babysitter that day, so she decided to bring Leo along. After all, if anyone was to truly be part of her life, they needed to accept him too. Her date, Ryan, was a confident, good-looking single father himself. He had a 7-year-old daughter, but unlike Elena, he had money, stability, and no visible scars. He'd built a successful real estate firm after his divorce and considered himself practical, even cynical, about relationships. When he first saw Elena walk in with her child, his jaw tightened. To him, it looked complicated. A kid. And in a wheelchair, he thought, masking his discomfort with a polite smile. As they sat down, Ryan's curiosity turned into unease. He couldn't understand why someone would bring a child, especially a disabled one, on a blind date. To him, it seemed inappropriate, maybe even desperate. So when he asked his question, "Why did you bring your disabled son here?" he didn't realize how cruel it sounded until silence fell around them. Elena paused for a moment, looking directly into his eyes. Her calmness was unnerving, almost too steady for the tension in the air. Then she simply smiled, a slow, graceful, and confident smile that made everyone watching wonder what she was about to say. But instead of explaining, she turned to Leo, brushed a hand over his shoulder, and softly said, "Let's order something for you, sweetheart." Her voice didn't crack, her dignity remained unshaken. That smile wasn't to hide pain, it was power disguised as grace. The rest of the restaurant went back to its rhythm, but Ryan couldn't shake the guilt crawling into his chest. He had seen many confident people, but none like her. Something about that smile made him realize he might have misjudged her completely. Still, his ego wouldn't let him apologize right away. As they began to talk, the air slowly softened. Leo's innocence and curiosity melted the stiffness at the table. He asked Ryan simple questions about space and buildings, speaking with a quiet excitement that felt contagious. Ryan found himself unexpectedly laughing at the boy's witty remarks. The meal that started in discomfort began turning into something surprisingly warm. Elena shared small stories about her life, how she juggled work, therapy sessions, and dreams of creating technology to help kids like her son. She spoke not like a victim, but like someone who had transformed pain into purpose. By the end of the lunch, Ryan was quiet, not because he didn't have words, but because he couldn't find any that matched what he felt. When Elena mentioned her company, Nova Reach Technologies, he froze. He'd heard that name before. His firm had just lost a massive contract to a tech company with that exact name, a company run by a female CEO who was making headlines for revolutionizing accessibility tools in schools. Suddenly, it hit him. "Elena, wait, are you that CEO?" he asked, almost whispering. She looked up, still smiling. "Yes," she said simply, her tone gentle yet proud. "I'm building something that gives kids like Leo a voice in the world." Ryan's heart sank. The woman he had just judged so harshly was not only far stronger than he imagined but also more successful than most people he knew. Shame burned through him. He tried to apologize, but Elena only shook her head softly and said, "You don't need to apologize, Ryan. Sometimes life humbles us in ways words never could." That afternoon, something changed inside him. Watching Elena push Leo's wheelchair out of the restaurant, her head held high, Ryan felt a sting of admiration and regret. He couldn't stop thinking about her words, her strength, and the way she faced the world with dignity despite everything life had stolen from her. Over the next few weeks, he found himself replaying that moment in his mind. The more he thought about it, the more he realized how narrow his understanding of strength had been. He had measured success in money, status, and comfort, but Elena had rebuilt her world from ashes. Without realizing it, she had taught him the meaning of resilience and true kindness. Ryan reached out a few weeks later, asking if she'd meet again, not for a date, but for coffee. This time, he brought his daughter, Emma. When the two children met, laughter filled the air instantly. Emma pushed Leo's wheelchair around the park paths, and Elena watched them with tears in her eyes. She could feel the walls around her heart slowly crumble. Ryan apologized properly that day, not just for his words, but for his mindset. "You showed me what real strength looks like," he said quietly. "You reminded me that sometimes, the people who carry the heaviest burdens are the ones who smile the brightest." Elena didn't respond right away. She just looked at her son, laughing with Emma, and then turned to Ryan. "We all have battles," she said. "What matters is who we become after fighting them." From that day on, Ryan and Elena's paths intertwined, not through romance alone, but through mutual respect, compassion, and shared growth. They started collaborating professionally, combining his real estate projects with her accessibility innovations to build inclusive community centers. Their partnership wasn't born out of pity, it was built on purpose. 1 year later, Elena stood on a stage at a charity event surrounded by bright daylight pouring through glass ceilings. Ryan sat in the front row beside Leo and Emma. She shared her journey with the audience, the loss, the pain, the question that once cut deep: "Why did you bring your disabled son here?" She smiled as she looked at her boy, proudly sitting in his motorized chair. "Because he's the reason I'm standing here today," she said softly. "Every place he goes, every door he enters, reminds me that strength isn't measured by how easily we walk, it's by how bravely we move forward." If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Thread. Your support helps us keep spreading stories that remind the world of love, compassion, and humanity. Sparkle's special request: tell us in the comments, what does true strength mean to you? As the applause echoed and sunlight gleamed on Elena's face, Ryan realized something profound, that a single smile, given at the right moment, can rewrite someone's entire understanding of life. Elena didn't just change his perspective, she reminded everyone that kindness is not weakness, and that love, in its purest form, begins with acceptance. And so, under the bright warmth of that afternoon, the woman who once walked in with trembling hands and quiet courage walked off the stage, her son by her side, her smile unchanged, stronger than ever, softer than words, and brighter than daylight itself.